Yeah, so, COVID, it was devastating in jail. COVID-19 when it hit. And, you think that jails are already locked down, but, it really got locked down when COVID hit. And I remember before it even came, at that time I was working in the program office. And so, we had heard things on the news about Wuhan, China, and um, some virus had broke out over there. And so we're kind of hearing this stuff, but, you know, like most people, we're probably thinking, oh, well, that's over there. It's not going to really affect us. And then we heard about the first case, in the United States. And still, you're still really thinking, oh, well, they'll probably just contain that. It's not going to really be, a massive thing. And so, we're living our life. We're just doing whatever we do here in prison. Like I said, it's not always locked down unless you're in a lockdown place. So at this time, I had a job. We have jobs in prison, different things that we do. And so at that time, I was working in the program office, and basically that's like working right there, um, for the correctional officers, helping, doing paperwork, just different types of things that we're able to help out with right there, cleaning, whatever needs to be done. And so, we were hearing kind of like the rumors now about, oh, this is COVID-19, and but it still hadn't hit the prison yet or nothing. So, still really weren't worried about it. And then we started hearing about the first cases, coming to prison. And I remember hearing that they were starting to lock down the prison, certain yards, and they still hadn't hit our yard, so it wasn't really affecting us still at that time. And then we're hearing like 60 cases, 100 cases of COVID-19 on one yard alone, and they're being quarantined, so they're being isolated. And, the thing that people don't understand about prison is that, even the common cold, one person gets it and that thing just goes through the whole prison. That's the way it is in here, because there is no really isolation, whether it's traveling through the ventilation system, um, correctional officers have to come into work. And obviously, some people weren't showing any symptoms, asymptomatic, but they're still passing it, right? So, that's how it was at first. And then finally, the first cases hit our yard, and boom, right away, we went on lockdown. And, it was a stressful time, stressful environment. Prison's already stressful as it is. So once that hit, it was real bad. And then, I remember hearing there's a little bit of controversy because there was inmates in Chino that had COVID-19, and for whatever reason, they put them on a bus and sent them up to San Quentin, and later it resulted in 29 deaths. 29 inmates. I believe that was the number that died over there from COVID-19. So then people started dying, and it just really became a big thing. And so we're isolated, we're in our cell, and I think the worst thing that I could say is that it halted all visits. We weren't able to see our family for over a year. We weren't able to have no contact, even pretty much with anybody for that matter. They would let us out in increments sometimes, but then once again we'd be slammed down because they'd come by and they do random testing. And the sad thing about that was that sometimes people would give a false positive, just like out there on the streets. But for us, that meant lockdown. So it was becoming frustrating. It became kind of like a hostile environment at times, and then we're supposed to be wearing our masks. We can't come out with our mask, and then we're hearing on the news that the masks don't even work. And I mean, from what I saw, they didn't work. That's just being honest with you. I mean, it didn't prevent nobody in here from catching 19. Everybody was still catching it. So, I mean, I get it. The point is to try to reduce it. So, I mean, we were in compliance with it, because we don't want to spread it, and we understand that. But it just continued to spread to where it felt like we're never getting off that lockdown. But at the same time, people were passing away. At least not on the yard that I was on did anybody pass away, but I do remember people getting it pretty bad, and so then they started giving the COVID vaccine, and for a little bit it got better. It got better for like a couple months, and then right away people started getting it again, and it really just got bad. And so even for myself, I remember that my neighbor, he was sick, and you know, he didn't want to report it or whatever. So then, they come by, and he goes man down, basically like he's sick, and so he tests positive for COVID, and so boom, they're gonna search the not search, but they're gonna test the whole building now. So now they're testing the whole building, and you know, at that time, I guess during that time, I had got sick, and I'm thinking that it was probably him. He was sick, and then I was next door to him. So you know, I mean, nobody really wants to say anything, because then you're gonna go isolation. They're gonna put you in the hole, because that's where you really go to be quarantined to a whole nother place, and nobody really wanted that. So I was just trying to see, maybe it's just a cold. And anyways, when they came through and tested us, I came up positive. So yeah, I had to pick up all my stuff, back all my stuff up, and I had to go to the hole, basically. That was where quarantine was at, and so they put you in an isolated spot, and my symptoms begin to get worse. And I remember that there was a point in time where I had complications breathing. And they came because they'll come every day to check your vitals and everything like that. But when they take you out, they put you in handcuffs, and so that was making it harder for me to breathe as well. And when they were checking my breathing, I was telling them I was having trouble. So right away, they sat me down. They called the ambulance, and they put me on oxygen. And I remember that sucked, because I was thinking I could breathe better now that I got this oxygen. So that was telling me that I was having trouble breathing. And so the ambulance gets there, and they pick me up, and they take you to CTC, which is the hospital right here. And so the doctor's checking on me, this and that. So they're like, yeah. So they call for Bakersfield Hospital to come pick me up. So they send the ambulance. And I remember the worst part about it was, I remember when the medics from Bakersfield came in, and they had to take me off the oxygen that the institution had me on and transfer me to theirs. And when they took that oxygen off, I felt like all the wind went out of me, and they kept telling me, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I was like, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe." And that was the first time I thought that I might not make it. Like I might die, and that's a scary feeling in prison, to think that you're gonna die alone in here. Like in prison, your family's not gonna be around. And I know that people were dying out there too as well, and they didn't have their family around because they wouldn't let them in, the hospital and the emergency room and things like that. So that's a fear in prison all the time, that you're gonna die in here alone, or you're not gonna make it out. So yeah, so that was the first time that it became real to me that, hey, I might not make it through this. And so they put me in the ambulance, and they took me to Bakersfield Hospital. And so I remember I got there, and they put me, it's packed in there, and so they put me in there, and I was there for a while, and the doctor came in, and I remember he looked at me, and maybe he's just frustrated because he's just dealing with so many people coming in with COVID, and I'm an inmate. So he looked at me and he said, "I don't know what they expect me to do with you." And I remember saying, "Damn, like, maybe, and I could kind of understand it, right? I mean, there's probably kids and people in there, and they're dying from COVID, and here I am, an inmate. Maybe I'm just taking up space. But nevertheless, I remember thinking, man, just send me back to the institution. I'm gonna die in this hospital. So yeah, it was a messed up feeling, but I kind of stabilized though at that point, and they had took the oxygen off, and I was breathing on my own. And I didn't want to go on a ventilator because I felt like if I go on a ventilator, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? Like it's just probably going to be over for me. So they sent me back to the institution, and I remember one thing that helped me when I was in the hospital was that I was kind of sitting in a kind of upright position, and for whatever reason, that's what stabilized me. Because when I was coughing, I couldn't stop coughing, and that's where I felt like I couldn't breathe because I was kind of choking because I couldn't get enough air. So I remember going back and I was coughing all night long, and I was like, man, it was getting worse. And so I kind of rolled up my mattress, and I kind of sat in the upright position, and for whatever reason, that just helped me. And 3 days later, I was good. For 3 days I slept like that, and I got better and started to get better, but it was a long process even in that, because there was other things that began to bother me. My back went out just from turning, and then after that, my feet were hurting. I couldn't even walk. You know, I was actually using something to help me walk because my feet hurt so bad, and I know those were all side effects, from having COVID, and it really just deteriorates your body, being like that, and laying down for so long. You're not up, you're not walking around, so COVID was a big thing right here. But yeah, you know, that's past us, but you never know what a day will bring. I never knew when I was hearing on the news that Wuhan, China was breaking out, that it would come here and that it would affect us and it would slam us down like that. And it'd be almost 2 years before a lot of us got visits or seen our family. So it was a rough ride, and I'm thankful we can look back, and know that we've got past that. But at the same time, it kind of prepares us that you never know what a day will bring. You never know when something like that can happen, so it's always better to be prepared.